that had what looked like triangular plates extending down its back and all the way down its long tail. And the people speak there of large nesting sites adjacent to the water's edge, which had been clearly left by a large creature.
If you only had one or two stories that sounded a bit similar to dinosaurs, you could see it as just a coincidence. But when you have this universal theme right across the globe, many different continents, many different cultures, and over a vast span of human history, then there's probably going to have to be some universal core truth there. In fact, the late Dr. Carl Sagan, one of the most well-known of all the world's evolutionists, took it so seriously that he actually wrote a book called The Dragons of Eden to try and answer this question as to how come there are so many different stories of dragons that are very similar to the dinosaurs when no one's ever seen a dinosaur. And the answer he came up with in his book was essentially that well, we evolved from reptiles, so part of our brain is a sort of a leftover of when we lived in the age of the reptiles, and so dragon legends are really, if you like, inherited memories from the age of reptiles. Now, there was an embarrassed silence for many of his evolutionary colleagues because, of course, there's no scientific credibility to the idea that memories are inherited. You know, that you might remember what some ancestor did when he was serving Cleopatra or something like that. But the importance of that little account was that one of the world's leading evolutionists took this issue so seriously that he tried to explain it, even though he didn't do a very good job. A much better explanation is that the Bible is right, that man and dinosaur did live together, and what we see are the somewhat corrupted legends, somewhat corrupted stories of a time when people and dinosaurs did really know each other.
Some people saw Danny coming. He was huge with scales and a long tail. They ran away screaming, "Dragon, dragon, run for your lives!" Danny yelled, "Come back!" But it just sounded like, "Roar!" This made everyone run faster. Stories about Danny's huge teeth and claws soon spread across the land.
If these really are stories based on memory, that means that at one point in time, man did see dinosaurs.
In National Bridges National Monument, Utah, there's actually some carvings, petroglyphs, done by the Indians that even an evolutionist in an evolutionary textbook says looks like a sauropod dinosaur. And we've actually had a team go out.
See that? This is one of the Indian petroglyphs. See? So one has to ask, where did an Indian get this idea? Where would you get this idea from? Unless they might have seen it.
Out there, they've seen it, photographed it, did a wax cloth impression of it, and it just looks like a sauropod dinosaur. But of course the evolutionists would say, well no, it must be some mythical animal. Why? Because dinosaurs didn't live with people. Well, how do you know that? And so to me, that sort of evidence, when you look at your dragon legends, many of the descriptions of those dragons actually fit nicely what we would call dinosaurs. And many of your dragon carvings, for instance, that you see, dragon paintings around the world, they look like some of the dinosaurs that we would understand existed from the fossil record.
The exact date was 1186 AD. And it's a stone temple that's in the Angkor Wat temple complex around Cambodia. And in a jungle area,
there's a number of stone carvings of things that are familiar to us today, along with Hindu and Buddhist mythology. And very distinctively, there's one that looks very much like a stegosaur, as reconstructed from fossils by some.
See that? Again, you see other images of like monkeys and fish and birds, and you go, oh, okay, okay, okay. And then you see something like this, and you go, that looks like a stegosaurus that you see in King Kong movie or in your dinosaur book. And the question you ask yourself is, where did these people see it? They didn't go see King Kong. You see what I mean? So you have to question, it's like, where did you invent this from? This doesn't look like something fantastical. You know what I mean? I mean, if you have ordinary images of monkeys and birds and trees and gophers and whatnot, and then this, you go, well, where did ancient people come up with this idea? See?
They've seen it.
They must have, the other, because the implication is that they must have seen one alive.
Scientists. And the question becomes, how did the people who carved that stone 800 years ago have carved so beautifully a stegosaur without having had any knowledge about what's in today's encyclopedias? And the clear conclusion is they were familiar with those creatures because they were alive at the same time.
Unless it was living, how could they get its anatomy correct? They had to see it in order to reproduce it correctly. And that's just one of over 80 instances around the world in every single continent where it's been found that humans and dinosaurs have coexisted because the humans have reproduced dinosaurs in one art form or another.
There's a cathedral in the UK, Carlisle Cathedral, which has been there a very long time. And one of the bishops buried there 600 years ago has, on the brass trimmings around his tomb, a number of engravings of animals, many of which are familiar to us today, but there's also some that look very much like sauropod dinosaurs. In fact,
again, this is something that you can see in this church in England. These long-tailed, long-necked, thick-legged, these look like dinosaurs. What were they drawing? Where'd they get this from? Natural History Museum? Not in 1187.
Any 21st century child would immediately recognise them as being sauropod dinosaurs. And so when we think about the evolutionary view that says dinosaurs became extinct 65 million years ago, and then we look at these sauropod dinosaur engravings on this 600-year-old tomb, how did they get there?
The oldest artifact that we have, period, is an Egyptian slate that commemorates an Egyptian king. And Hierakonpolis slate is one of the names given to this artifact. And on one side, it shows him grasping the head of his recently defeated foe and about to chop the head off. So it's a slate saying, look how great I am. And on the back, it's got some Egyptians with ropes around necks of two great sauropod looking, I mean, they look just like a children's book with.
And this is from ancient Mesopotamia. And this is a reproduction of a sauropod dinosaur. It gets you thinking, where did people come up with these ideas? Where did they come up with this art? If they didn't see them alive, where did they get the idea? Would you have come up with this? I don't know if I would.
With a Patasaurus on it or something, necks intertwined. And we have this motif repeated on two different, totally different places, separated by hundreds of years.
Obviously, if there are engravings of sauropod dinosaurs which are hundreds of years old, prior to any scientist reconstructions of fossils, the only way that we could say that they could have done it so intelligently was if they had viewed the creatures for themselves, or at least had access to sketches or drawings or descriptions made by eyewitnesses of those creatures at around that time.
And so I'm looking at the time, and this, like I said, it's well over an hour long, but I wanted you to get a good chunk of this. If you want to watch it in its entirety, just know at about halfway through, they talk about it's very evangelical in their view. These are evangelical Protestant Christians who support this view. Okay, so just note that around about this period here, they stop talking about the science and the stories, and they start preaching about Jesus, which is fine, but you just have to know where they're coming from. So with that, I want to get us into the second half. So How do dinosaurs fit into all this? It's very likely that what we now call dinosaurs today, ancient people called dragons, and that these dragons, these creatures, coexisted for a time after the flood. Okay? And that, why don't we see them in zoos? Well, we kind of do. If you see the Komodo dragon, it's still alive. I think that's a modern hangover from the dinosaur age. But beyond that, I think things like what you've seen here, American Indian drawings, the carvings in Egyptian and Mesopotamian lore, I think these are the basis of the creatures that survived after the flood for a little while. And why aren't they in existence now in great numbers? Because they were feared and killed as monsters, as dragons. Okay? That's why. And that a whole legend around the world about these terrible creatures that plague humans have a basis in reality of some kind. And that we have to rethink that. The last part is, has Noah's Ark been discovered? Oops. There are two. I'm going to replay the one I did a few weeks back. Again, I want to jump to the part where modern, 1955 archaeologists searching for the remnants of Noah's Ark just made some incredible discoveries. That later fueled other researchers in more modern times to look and find evidence for the Ark. Oh, no, 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 I'm melting, I'm melting. What a world, what a world. Let's try it again. No, 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 don't leave me, don't leave me. All right, let's try another one. Let's try this one. I wonder if it's because everyone that's standing in line is on their phones. They're like sucking up all the Wi-Fi power. I wonder if that's it. I just wonder. Just wonder. Because we are connected. Because we were just playing things. Let's try it again. To find the discovery of Noah's Ark. Yeah. I think a lot of people were turned away when they saw the lines and the lack of parking. I really do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have it be all that for right now. Next week, we will talk about, has Noah's Ark been discovered? Is there any evidence of this boat that Noah built on a mountain in Turkey? And if so, what evidence is there for that? And what does that again tell us about the story of Noah's Ark? So with that, I'm going to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and grant you his peace. And I'll see you next week.